helps students in sciences with various platforms. We also offer mentorship programs and so on. So if you are from STEM, that is science, technology, engineering and mathematics, our website's the place to go.
Hi, I'm David. I'm from SGInnovate. Technically, we are not a startup, but we behave like one. So we are an entity that supports entrepreneurs, people who want to build ambitious ideas and products. So we come in as an investor, helping to support their growth as companies.
Jake. So RateX is actually a cross-border payment solution. The overall idea is that we help you pay less online on both local and international e-commerce websites.
Hi, my name is Jian. I'm the Chief Medical Officer at Holmusk, doctor by training. And at Holmusk, what we do is we see ourselves, we are a healthcare company with a strong focus on technology as well as data and create digital programs to help people with chronic diseases like diabetes and obesity stay healthy.
My name is Jun Xian. I'm the CFO of Cashshield. Cashshield is a big data to make decisions, transaction fraud, account fraud. We are technically also not a startup, but we do our clients are global. In America, our biggest client is we got like gaming companies like Square Enix and Sandhya as well. In Europe, our biggest clients we get telcos like Vodafone and T-Mobile, our biggest. China, Alibaba is our biggest client. In Singapore, our biggest clients we got Singapore Airlines, and Cherry Credits, Singapore's e-commerce, a lot of quite random ones. But basically, e-commerce, travel, and digital goods, which includes digital data. So our core competencies would be that we're very good at identifying digital data, human behavior online. We're also very good at high-speed recognition of communications data. So that allows us to identify the user, the driver behind the wheel, and we apply that logic on fraud and counter loss. Yes, so for myself, organizations here. We are actually a professor and student because we want to link up regarding people who are passionate about IT and then they can link them up within the and I would say that all of them are great examples that a lot of us want to see them so go forward and also start our own stuff. So that's also the reason why we have your all here to share that experience and share about disruptive innovation. There's actually 3 months, so you can actually share. Yeah, all of them can be used as stick. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually a scientist by profession, so I still work in A-Star. That's my full-time job, but I still have this startup. And the reason for starting this was the experiences doing my PhD and during my postdoctoral days, and I think from my peers as well. With all the difficulties that we face and all the hurdles that we face while doing a PhD, it's not that easy. But yeah, all of us have gone through that and came out successfully. But so the main unique platform that we have on SciGlo is something called laboratory ratings. So you will find all of your professors and all of the labs around the world where you can do research listed there. And it has anonymous ratings like how you rate a movie. So there are star ratings. So my analogy is when you go to a restaurant or for a movie, you look at the ratings. So if it's a 5-star, you will go to the theater and watch it. But if you're spending 3 to 5 years of your life in a laboratory, why don't you look at its rating? Because you know you want to enter the best lab. I mean, the best lab might not have the best professor.
So was this inspired by Yelp or any other kind of review service?
Correct. So it's a mix of Yelp, ResearchGate, a bit of LinkedIn here and there. And that's what it is. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay.
So I graduated from NUS a while ago with a degree in psychology. I always thought I'll further my studies and become a PhD and come back and teach the students here. But along the way, I found another passion and interest, which is to help companies grow. So at SGInnovate, what we do is beyond just doing investments into startups. What we do a lot of extensive help in portfolio growth. We help them to improvise on terms of their branding. We help them to structure a team, to hire the right hires. We help them to expand to new markets. So when this opportunity came out to join SGInnovate, I joined them. It's been quite an exciting journey for over the last 3 years now. So that's how I landed where I am now.
I think it involves a lot of psychology by itself.
Yeah, sometimes we have to screw our people. Yes.
So basically, I think it's a combination of a few factors. So I think the main one was I was in New York, starting at Stern and then working there. So I have a lot of requests from friends and relatives to help them get stuff from the US. And then I basically point out to two things. Why don't you get it yourself, right? They told me it's either they can't get it or the currency is an issue. So I didn't step into the logistic problem because of my finance background, so I actually went into the payment problem. So my overall thought was, what if today I can get anything I want across the world, changing the local currency to the Google rate? Because wherever you check money, you want to change money, you check on Google, the rate that they offer is not the rate that you will get at any kind of places. So we basically came up with a solution that lets you do that and pay for your online shopping. So our first vertical is e-commerce. So second will be more of my character. So I love to do like things like arbitrage and things to like basically ways to make money without much risk. Yeah. So I will often or not gather things from all over the world and then sell them on like any platform that I can. So my question that when I started this is, if nobody today uses what I do, would I actually use it myself? And then once again, as long as the answer is yes, I will keep improving the product, and then hopefully people like me will actually enjoy what we do.
Yeah, I think that's a very great principle to follow. Like you would use your own product. Please continue.
Sure. So for myself, I come from I've always been in healthcare and medicine. I actually studied in NUS as well, graduated about 10 years ago, and since then I spent about 7 years working as a practicing clinician in the hospitals. And my partner and CEO, he comes from a very strong, I would say, finance and economics background. And he's seen how the financial services industry has transformed over the last 15 or 20 years. Like just take for example, like say in the stock market, say about 20, 30 years ago, all of it, trading was all done manually by human beings in the stock market, stock exchange, using hand signals, and that was how stocks were traded. And fast forward in maybe 10, 20 years, about in the 2000s, then a lot of it was done electronically, and the stock exchanges are now a lot more, I would say, civilized. And today we are starting to see that a lot of trading is now done algorithmically, means by, for example, using algorithms who actually, I would say, process large volumes of financial data in order to make decisions, and often these decisions could be even more accurate than human traders. And we saw a similar parallel or transformation that's starting to happen in the healthcare industry and healthcare space, and that we were really at the beginning of where this was shifting. Because if to be honest, I would say that over the last 30 or 40 years ago, model for healthcare has not really changed at all. You still travel to the clinic, you still travel to the hospital and see a doctor. We have new medications, we have new machines, but it doesn't really change very much in the model of healthcare. But we truly believe that in the next 10 to 50 years, healthcare is going to shift towards a very much more digital space, and that's why why we exist here right now.
Okay, so I can share my experience from two perspectives. So one is a personal perspective, and the other one would be like a corporate perspective, like Cashshield's perspective. So personally, I got a little bit of EG backside. So like when I see things right, then you look. I think Jake will relate to this. You see there are opportunities for money to be made, man, right? Then it's for who go and grab it, right? So I'm the one who will go and try and grab it, lah. So who's from the NUS Business School? Don't have. Okay. So a few years ago, I one of the cafes in the business school is owned by me. Like it's called Reeds Cafe. now it kind of got taken over by another cafe. But anyways, we're opening a new cafe in the Shaw Foundation Alumni House in the next semester. Yeah, our lease ran out. We were there for about 6 years. I started doing cafes personally when I was in year 2, Sem 2 of undergraduate studies. So I got very severe itchy backside syndrome. Yeah. So personally, like I've worked for about 10 years already. When I first graduated, I think similar to Teng Yan, like finance was industry. So became a banker. I studied finance, became a banker. Realized that banking or finance wasn't so much my thing. And I guess like, because I joined a very big bank, right? Very big international bank, do something very specific. Subsequently went to do non-profit. Then I went to America to study as well. Came back, became a VC with Garena. I built an app called Shopee. And then subsequently now it's Cashshield. So very severe itchy backside syndrome. But what I realized, right, is that personally, ultimately, corporate life wasn't so much for me. Yeah. And I figured that out very early in my career. So that helped me, I guess, like make my decisions in the future. So if you young guys like have the same, I guess, like confusion, because you graduate, right? Everything is what you can do. You can do operations, you can do HR, you can do anything you want, right? But you still need to decide, and deciding is very difficult when you have so many options. So on a personal basis, like my motivation was actually from my earlier experience. I was able to compare what entrepreneurship life was versus a corporate life, because I already had a business that was running, and I also joined a pretty big bank. I guess like from a corporate perspective, Cashshield, we started as e-commerce. Yeah, we got, in the beginning it was very easy money. I just buy from China, I resell to the US, right? And I can make a lot of money, a lot of arbitrage if you will. Yeah, so very easy. And then we got hit by fraud. Yeah, so we wrote the algorithm to solve our own problem. And the reason why our algorithm is so special is because we are from finance background. We just tried to write an algorithm that will solve our own problem using our own brain, and we happen to be finance people. So ultimately what we realized, right, is that our competitors are all American and Israeli, right? And none of the algorithms in the world are written from a financial perspective, we come to realize, because a lot of them are written by data scientists with PhDs, very specific way of solving, I guess, like a fraud problem, minimize fraud rate, right? But we try to maximize fraud rate to maximize revenue, which is very financial. So I guess like that's how the company grew. It was unexpected. Yeah, but I guess like our journey was that we have always stuck to our guns. We try to solve the problem in the way we would see it. So if you guys have ever started your own company, there's going to be a lot of noise out there that may kind of like distract you from what you believe is the solution to it. My personal advice is like just stick to your own guns. Look at the world the way you would look at your own world, and then try to drill all the way downwards and solve the problem the way you would solve your problem. Yeah, so I mean, for us, that's been a good journey.
That's very cool. Now, I'd like to remind everyone, this is a casual chat. It may sound serious, but it's very casual. So feel free to talk about any itches that you have freely. Okay? So maybe we'll go to a slightly more casual question then, just to lighten up the mood a little bit. Let's say your startup and not startups, let's say they didn't work out, like Murphy's Law, everything just went wrong. What do you think you would be doing right now instead? Oh, I thought you were reaching for a mic. Yes. Anyone wants to start?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like I mentioned, I've always been in healthcare, and I do see myself, even if this doesn't work out, and touch wood.
That is not wood.
There's no wood? Oh no. Maybe here. All right. Okay. But in any case, I would see myself, I would say, for the rest of my life being in this space, because there are just so many, I would say, meaningful challenges and problems that are still out there to be solved. I probably would see myself doing something more towards in the public health and policy space, or doing something in the primary care space. That's for me.
Well, I guess if this doesn't work out, financially I will be safe because I will still be looking at a lot of arbitrage opportunities. But then eventually I will dabble onto one and I will restart the entire thing again on the same aspect. So anyway, just on the corporate perspective, I used to work for Japanese VCs. And then I was in I actually signed on for a bit in the army, Singapore military. So both with the corporate, I know I can never step back to that place again. Yeah, because those people you just can't get things across done. Yeah, so that's my overall thing.
So before I joined SGInnovate, I was with an SME, working alongside the shareholder. So if this doesn't work out for me, I'll probably do my own business because I also have an itchy backside. Yeah, and I think from being in SME and then being in an investor perspective, next thing you know, you probably have a lot of EG backside to want to do your own startup. So if this doesn't work out for me, I'll probably be trying my own venture.
Nice.
I have had an unsuccessful startup before, so this is my second one. And if this doesn't work out, then I'm sure I'm going to do another startup as well. I think once you're bitten by the entrepreneur bug, it's very hard to get rid of it. But like I said, I still have a corporate full-time job, and I'm still doing this. And I think I'm enjoying both at the same time. Would I leave my corporate job? I don't think so. Would I leave the startup? I don't think so. So I think for a while I'm just going to do both and touch wood that this goes on pretty well. Yeah.
For me, it's the same, I guess. Like entrepreneur bug, you are bitten by it. It's very difficult to undo it. Yeah, but I think like even if this doesn't work out, it's totally fine, right? Just do another one now. I mean, what do you guys have going for you today, right? Like you're taking on risks, right? So you have a lot of upside. You have very little downside, no? Because you're spending time to build a startup. You come up with very minimal amount of money. You use a lot of investor money, so it's not even your own money. And then even if you fail, you put on your CV, right? It's okay, man, because people recognize it as relevant working experience, right? It wasn't always like that. Yeah, and 10 years ago, right? If you do a startup, right, and then you fail, right, everybody laugh at you, and I'm very sad. Then like you spend 3 years building a startup, right? You have to join at fresh grad pay, Yeah, which means that they do not recognize entrepreneurship as relevant work experience. So, I mean, with all these, I think, in place, if the thing doesn't work out, like, I mean, it's totally plausible to just do another one.
I think on that point, it just means you no longer rise vertically. Most of the time, they hire horizontally. So if you go to, I would say, the downside is maybe non-existence, because at the end of the day, the only downside is finance. You lose time value of money because your pay is low, you cannot invest, and then you lose the timeline. It cannot be Warren Buffett in this case. But in any case, you can get a job. Other company will hire you as a country head for certain market expansion, because you just have the knowledge of the entire country that you were in.
And I think nowadays globally they're recognizing failing in a startup as well, because then you know what not to do in your next startup. So yeah, that's an experience on its own.
I mean, the last I heard, like if you went for NOC, your starting pay will be much higher, like a couple $100 higher at least when you join MNC. So I think at this point of time, even like corporates, they value the whole concept of being in a startup or being more innovative. So if you're a student, you're considering right now, I think, I would encourage you to do it like 10 years ago, but now it's a much better situation.
Looks like we have an agreement. Yau Teng Yan.
Alright, so I won't consider BiZiT as a startup, but always we have this question when we do all the kind of startup, is that where do you find time, right? Especially, I know Sandhya, you have your full-time job and also a startup itself, and for ourselves, when we run this kind of festival and a lot of planning involved and stuff like that, people, like our sponsors will approach us and ask us, so where do you find the time to do it? You only have 24 hours, everyone has 24 hours per day. So of course, like they mentioned, time is definitely the one. You need to have very good time management before you can actually do it well. And also, passion is definitely, because it will keep you going. Sometimes people will start doubting you and stuff like that. Your investor will doubt you, definitely. They are there to doubt you actually before the customer starts doubting you. So we have I have my fair share of starting out new things, but not at the corporate level or start out business, but more of clubs and stuff like that. So I consider myself to be a disruptor, because when I go into an environment, I like to change stuff. I see stuff, I like to change stuff. So a lot of people actually hate me. I have a lot of enemies, especially people who are, they are used to the red tapes or used to the norm and stuff like that. They don't like me. If you have, if you can put 5 chairs here, just now we were actually busy arranging the chairs before we started. And I was like telling my team and everyone that orientation and stuff like that. So I'm actually very particular about change. I live in changes actually. So from young, I mean, I have been involved in a lot of all these kind of clubs and stuff like that, and not just changing events, but also changing things on a bigger scale that goes above what my pay grade can be, or they like to call it what students should care about. So I think this is something that you need to have, and it's the courage to stand out and speak up. And then once you make the change, you are successful, you are a hero. Of course, if you are not successful, then that's another different story.
Yeah, so very wise words from our chairman, and seems like everyone here is pretty much in agreement that we should really just try doing things. But anyway, that brings us to our topic, disruptive innovation. So maybe let's start with, let's just clarify some things. What is disruptive innovation to you? Like, don't give me some dictionary definition. I can go Google it too. But to you personally, what would disruptive innovation really mean? Okay, maybe they need a moment to think about this one. I recognize this is a trickier question. It's like those English questions in exams when they're like, can you change this word with another word? Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of definition, but my personal, it's actually based on time, because time decides the level of technology that's in place. So, no, iPhone was disruptive, right? But today it's not. And then today you look at maybe VR, and then you consider VR and AR as disruptive. It hasn't reached a stage where it's a mature technology yet. So you can look at Gartner's report on that. Just look at the entire hype curve, and then you see which one is maturing, non-maturing, and then you can decide, okay, that's going to be disruptive or not. That's a 50% gamble on that. So just a very easy way to answer. Yeah. But overall, I think besides beyond level of technology, disruptive, it needs to bring value, right? So creation of value is very, very strong in entrepreneurship. So in economics, right? So basically, there's always the opportunity cost, utility, etc. So I believe when solutions turns disruptive, it creates value out of nowhere, and every party in the ecosystem actually benefit from it. That's when you truly call it disruptive. So today there's a new ride-sharing 6TNC, the Indon guy. So basically he promises his driver 100,000 a year if you drive their cab, which is a Uber and Grab. So their overall takeaway was it's an MLM, right? So how to earn 100K, you basically get 5% of a cut of a driver introduced to the system. Yeah, so that's how it works. You can go both ways. If you think of it is when the market is sufficient and then there's different layers thick enough, it's truly, you can create value. But to me, I think that is not true, because when you win, somebody loses in the entire MLM scheme that this 6TNC has been trying to do. And who's the only winner? The founder, right? Because he raised VC money and then he get a cut, 15% off every driver that's working for him. But once again, whether it work or not, I cannot comment, because they are much more senior. But if you look at in an economic standpoint, that is not disruptive. That is just a money ploy to make money. Yeah. So that's a bit of a few definitions here.
I think disruptive technology is definitely being in the right time in the right place. So I attended a few conferences in India, and I was blown away by these startups. So there were about 80 startups presenting there, and I think 50 startups did the same thing.
Oh, that's not innovation.
No, wait, it is innovation because of the sheer population in India. Suppose the startup is, it's a website where you can order medicines home, for example. You can upload your doctor's prescription and then you get it home, because there's a lot of aging population in India as well, because they can't go to the pharmacies. So each city has a website like this, but the sheer population, each city has 1 million people in it. So just the sheer population makes it disruptive. Because they have already in profit, they don't need investment, they just have a website there. They've tied up with all the pharmacies within the city, tied up with the doctors, and getting your medicines delivered to your house. So each city has a different website. Nobody wants to go into the other city because they have enough customers in their city as well. So I think that's exactly being at the right time in the right place.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Okay. So I guess I did my master's in Harvard, and then the guy that came out with the terminology disruptive innovation is Prof. Clayton, right? Christensen. Yeah, so he was actually my prof. So he was drilling us on the shit. Sorry, shouldn't say shit. But okay, anyway, I guess for innovation, there are broadly speaking 3 levels, right? I think there's evolutionary, revolutionary, and then there's disruptive. So even for Cashshield, right, I think we are more revolutionary. Evolutionary would be maybe iPhone 9 got some 300,000 megapixel camera, yeah, something like that. So that's evolutionary, right? Then revolutionary would be kind of rethinking, maybe new features. That's a little bit more revolutionary. But and I think Cashshield is revolutionary, not so much disruptive. I think true disruption probably comes when the market adopts it. Yeah, you can have a very good product, right? But it's not disruptive. It doesn't disrupt anything because there's no market adoption. So a good example that's always quoted, I think horse carriages and cars, right? Yeah, Ford was creating cars for about 30 years. Nobody used it, not disruptive. But when they came out with a certain model, I can't remember which one, a Model T, yeah. And everybody started buying it because it was so cheap, right, then it was disrupting the entire market. The entire horse carriage market went down because now that there's a whole new way of doing things. So Uber and Grab is probably became disruptive because they started eating away the entire traditional taxi market, but it didn't start being disruptive. So to me, like disruptive only happens when you have a lot of market share. Yeah.
So I think everyone here has very kind of like explored this already. I think everything here makes sense. Maybe I'll just share a little bit on my sort of like, I guess, personal viewpoint on the word disruptive and innovation. And I think disruptive or disruption or innovation is probably something that's a lot more of a buzzword. And I think as human beings, we tend to have a certain attraction for this word because it implies, for example, shaking things up. And it implies a certain sense of striking fear in the hearts of, say, perhaps the big corporations and so on. I guess as human beings, we tend to take to something like this as well. So maybe I'll share also a little bit from the healthcare perspective, which is basically where I come from. And I would say for outsiders, people often use the word disruption. So we see a lot of headlines that say this particular new company is here to disrupt healthcare. But among the insiders, we know that healthcare is not going to be disrupted just because of the challenges and the complexity of the entire system. But rather, healthcare is going to head towards that, I would say, that very slow evolution, but it will slowly get better and better over a period of time. So I would say that it's probably a word that has been used too much, and in certain industries or contexts may not be the best word to use.
If I were to put it very simply for myself, it is when a small company with less resources is able to take on a bigger company that has been around for a very long time with a lot of resources. So a common perspective that we have is when a startup takes on like an MNC from this perspective.
So usually from outside, students like to ask that, is it possible that, because students apply concepts and stuff when they learn in business school, so do you see yourself, because you are all domain expert in your various domain, you have healthcare, finance, right? So do you see yourself that, you see, for example, often the disruptor, they like to say, it might be mislabeled like Uber and stuff like that, right? They like to say that sharing economy itself is something that's, it's a disruptive concept. So that as long as you inject sharing economy concepts into an industry, whatever industry, make it such that people start to share access resources and stuff like that, right? And then it itself is able to disrupt the current market itself. Do you agree with this viewpoint? Yeah.
So I will take on both of their comments. So what Jun Xian said was to have market share. So the sharing economy only works when it's something that is in your daily life. So if you look at a diary template of a user, for example, today I wake up, I will brush my teeth. So everybody brushes their teeth. Everybody uses smartphone. Everybody travel to work, etc. So Grab and Uber targeted the travel portion, the taxi rides. Another example will be, hey, everybody uses smartphone. What if I have a sharing economy for a smartphone? And nobody owns one, but everybody just rent one. Is that possible? So the answer will be not possible. Yeah. So with a sharing economy, it needs to achieve this level of market adoption. There's only a few things that you can actually look at in a daily template of a user. So you gotta, from there you pick up. So you can't just throw in a sharing economy into a certain concept and then expect it to really work because of the market share. Yeah, you might work, things will use, but once again you hit local maxima. When your local maxima is not at a very high, like it's very low, it's just not disruptive, nothing changes at the end of the day. Yeah, so just my takeaway from this.
Any more comments?
Yeah, I guess like sharing economy, like this one got people like it, and there are people who don't like it as well. But I think like along the lines of like Jake, right? Like if you look at what's exactly happening, right? Who wins, who loses? The middleman definitely loses in a sharing economy. But I think the economy in the short term doesn't do well. Because you think about it, right? What does technology do? And sharing economy is a subset of that. It makes things faster, makes things cheaper, makes things that previously not accessible now accessible. For example, like technology cannot produce bak chor mee for you, right? Someone need to go and produce it. But technology through Uber Eats can bring it to your house faster, cheaper, and previously you couldn't get the one from, I don't know, Changi Village or something, and now you can, right? So accessibility. But the problem about the economy is that when you start sharing, right, you reduce wastage, correct, right? But wastage drives the economy, right? Yeah, if there's no wastage, right, people stop buying. Yeah, and when people stop buying, right, then economy or multiplier go down, right? Wow, and then there's that. Like that's why you see in the world, right, our economy, most of the economies are stagnant. Yeah, particularly part of it is because of the sharing economy. People are just using existing resources a lot more efficiently, and people stop buying. Yeah, and like my wife, so many shoes, but actually only got 2 legs. Then I don't know how to reconcile. But I mean, the sharing economy causes this problem. But I guess like proponents of the sharing economy are for efficiency. So these people that are displaced, right, they stop working, they must go somewhere to work, right? So the argument is that they will go into more productive, more new age, innovative things. But in the short term, regardless, there's going to be a little bit of frictional unemployment. Yeah, but hopefully the government, the Singapore government is actually very, very proactively promoting productivity. Yeah, that all of us, increase our skill sets. If you don't know coding, there are avenues for you to learn basic coding. I think Lee Hsien Loong also trying to show that, he does some basic coding as well. So the idea is to push it towards that so that, the future of jobs will be in that area. But short term wise, I do believe the sharing economy kills a little bit of jobs. Yeah.
Also, it's important to differentiate, I think, between on-demand and sharing. Yeah, so there's a difference. So I think sharing is basically existing assets, whereas on-demand is basically when you want something, it comes to you, right? So that's the difference. So fast fashion is sharing, because you got like all the shoes lying in the shoebox, you should rent it out to someone that use it for an event a day. Yeah, so yeah, that's a difference.
So any more comments?
I'm good here.
Yeah, I think you mentioned like how Uber is doing this sharing thing with cars and travel, but you can't really do that with smartphones. But you realize that travel, you can still, even though Uber has technically done the travel part by doing a taxi service by sharing cars, but you can actually still do sharing with travel, because I noticed recently there's this startup that's doing like sharing of bicycles. So they're really still banking on this travel idea.
Forgot which professor, they wrote a really, really good essay on this, the bike sharing economy versus the car sharing, right? So at the end of the day, I really can't remember the gist, but overall the bike sharing there's no value creation. Because once again, I think I subscribe to his thinking of value creation. You are just generating bytes to let people to use. So whereas cars, you can't create cars as fast as you create bytes. So when you create a lot of bytes and then people use, that's not truly sharing. That's creating tons of wastage lying around, and then people start to share. And whereas regulators is also the problem. And then if you see China, it's going to, the bike sharing is terrible. Yeah, I will never buy that model. Just a quick comment.
I think if you look like sharing, you can consider Airbnb. So like your rooms that you used to have in the house that you're not doing anything with it, then you can lease it out to people. But technically Airbnb is not a new concept. Bed and breakfast has been around for like eons of years. So the only difference is technology. Because of this technology platform, they're able to put it online to get trust between the customers and house owners, which is why they're able to scale. So I do not think it's a case where once you just throw in like a sharing economy concept and then the business suddenly become like a disruptive innovation. But I do think that technology is an enabler for this to happen. So I'll rather focus on the fact that technology makes more impact than just concepts being thrown around.
So maybe I'll just add in my quick 2 cents worth. And I think Jake really hit upon an important point. I think for any business to be sustainable in the long run, you really need to add value to people, and you need to understand what is that value that you're adding to people. That being said, I'm actually, with regards to the sharing economy, I come at this actually from a consumer perspective, and I actually think it's actually been quite interesting these couple of years to see what's been going on. And I would say that some of these services have actually made things a little bit easier for us as life. So I'm quite hopeful and optimistic to see whether some of these companies actually become sustainable businesses in the future. It's good for us.
Okay, so back on the idea of disruptive innovation, do you think that disruptive innovation is something that's just like temporary, like it's just like a hype of the moment? Because let's say, for example, when Uber came in, it really disrupted the whole taxi economy. But let's say something like Uber becomes the norm. Will that still be considered disruptive innovation?
To bring that out to another level, you look at the economic history of things, right? So Industrial Revolution was disruptive, right? Steam power, etc., etc. So when the 2000 came in, internet is the next revolution, right? So hype or not, we cannot live long enough to say that. Yeah, but it probably rely on people that look back in the past to see what's going to happen. But in the future that we can foresee and we can live, disruptive innovation is definitely not just a hype. Yeah, you got to embrace it, because people that didn't embrace the industrial revolution died quite badly. Yeah.
I think same as Drake. Like, disruptive innovation is not something that's only now. It's probably something that's continuously happening. Yeah.
I think, like he said, definitely disruptive innovation is there always, but I think now it's out there for everybody to read about and see because of technology and social media and all of that. And it's faster. It used to be slower before because of the lack of technology, but now it's faster, and I think the startup boom, we are living in that space right now. So I think disruptive innovation is very fast right now.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I think it's all very relative as well, and I think innovation will just keep happening as well. It's just that perhaps over the last 10, 20 years, the pace of innovation has actually increased a lot. And it's also, I would say, around, I guess, people's mindsets and perceptions. Like, maybe I was actually listening to a podcast around actually cybersecurity recently, just for interest's sake. And if you think about it, say about 20, 30 years ago, we were actually using the word cyber a lot, cyberspace and all of that. But today, the internet is a very much a fabric of our lives. We cannot imagine our lives without the word internet. And so when you talk about things, the word cyber doesn't have to come in as well. We just talk about how we do things like that. So it's no longer cybersecurity, but rather it's just security that we have to deal with. So I think as years go by, this will also change.
Yeah. So on that note, since we're talking about how this kind of thing changes over time, what do you think of Singapore's current situation? Do you think that the Singapore environment is conducive towards disruptive innovation? Yes, SGInnovate. Represent, please answer.
I think I'll tweak the question a little bit.
Sure.
It's whether Singapore is a conducive and provides a conducive environment for innovation in general.
Yes, sure.
Because I think disruptive innovation is too broad a term. Everybody have differing perspectives about it.
Sure.
Well, I do think at this point of time, Singapore, from the regular rankings that we have, ranked one of the world's highest place to do innovation. But from a more personal perspective, I do see a lot of interested parties coming together to support this whole growth of innovation. It's not just the government, it's not just the investors, it's about entrepreneurs themselves making a mindset shift. I think in the past, right, you hardly hear of people who have, say, a PhD in machine learning, who is a professor at university, to decide to move out to do a startup. But we are seeing that happening right now. And I think because of how the environment have gotten together to rally the support of each other, you're getting increasingly more and more people like these moving out from what they usually term as, comfort zones to do something they are a little bit more passionate about things that solving problems that they think that are more impactful. I'm not saying that, being a professor is not impactful, because that was what I wanted to do before. But I'm saying that, with this whole landscape being what it is now, there is this support system where people who thought of being an entrepreneur in the past but didn't want to do it are more inclined to do it now. So personal opinion, yes, I think it's a little bit more conducive now. It's a lot more conducive now. Just look 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe fintech was not as commonly known. But today fintech is everywhere. And it's not by chance.
I'll just comment on the funding perspective of this, right? So in the various stage of startup, there's a pre-seed, seed, Series A, Series B, and so on. So the different series and terms are just to detect the ticket size, basically the check size that you receive. There's no hard and fast rule. It's just easier way to tell people, hey, I'm raising a Series A. They will not, I'm not raising 50,000. I'm raising 5 million, for example. Yeah. So looking at pre-seed, which is an easier way to start a company, the first check you get is so easy right now. Startup SG Grant ACE. That's what the government has been doing. They have been putting in this check size of like 50K to allow anybody to start up as long as you're 25, around 25 and first time founder. Yeah, that's one. Second, they relax the law for anybody to be accredited investors. So today, as long as you have 2 million in assets, you can apply and then you can become an angel investor. So with this, there's a huge spike in young companies, the super early growth startups. that's a result of the liquidity, because there's higher liquidity in that stage. Now we move on to seed stage. So seed stage startups, there's this new thing called the AMP. This is actually for people who are interested to do startup. So this is called the accredited mentor partners. These are like joint ventures called the FinLab, Open Vault by OCBC, Quest VC, a lot of people. So now you see the seed stage got a little bit easier to start. But there's a huge gap between from seed to Series A. Whereas Series A is a true mark of entrepreneur, right? So do you execute properly? Do you do properly, etc.? Yeah. So I think with you guys raised 3 million USD means the team is solid. They did something well. That's right. Once again, you go all the way to the end, Garena, right? IPO. That's the exit strategy. In between, Series B is really little. Yeah. There's almost, I can name a few. Carousel, Shockback, yeah, Cashshield, this kind that raise funding rounds. These are known names already. Yeah. So overall, it's easier to start a company in Singapore. Early stage funding is abundant, liquidity is high, but there's no continuity in helping them to reach the later rounds. Whereas in Silicon Valley, everybody is almost proportional. There's a relative percentage all the way, but Singapore just drops off. Yeah, so we're trying to quickly jump across the obstacle here to the next stage.
I can share our perspective and our challenges like starting up. So Cashshield has been around since 2008, right? And the world was a little bit different then. Singapore was very different then. Our first clients were actually the telcos in Europe. When we pitched to them as a Singaporean company, they didn't want to do business with us. Yeah, they said like, where is Singapore, right? I'd rather you tell me you are a Japanese company. And that was the truth of it. The Singapore brand was not entirely known for being smart, being secure, that kind of things. So anyway, we incorporated a Swiss company and then we pretend to be a Swiss company and then we close them. But now we are paying taxes in Singapore because as in the revenue comes back to Singapore because we've been with them for about 7 years already, so very long. We are currently funded by Temasek Holdings and a global fund called GGVC. Yeah, I was sharing with David that in Singapore we don't see this name very often because it's not Golden Gate, it's Granite Global. Yeah, there are other portfolios include like Airbnb, Zendesk, Slack, Square. In China it's like Didi, Kuaiti, Alibaba, Youku. Some of these guys, very known name people. Actually, like our board of directors, Jenny Lee, she was going to be on Powerless Asia on Channel News Asia. I saw her snippet. But anyway, that's right. So the reason we did that was because now it makes sense to be branded as a Singapore company. Yeah, like when we talk to our clients from Rotterdam, for example, in Holland, right? The Singapore brand is a brand of trust. It's changed already, so now it's very different. And we are a cybersecurity company, right? So it makes sense for us to align with a Singapore brand. The Singapore government has also been very, I guess, like deliberate about pulling data companies in. We have Facebook, we have Google. A lot of the data centers are hosted here. So suddenly the Singapore brand is pretty much aligned with tech. Yeah, and for a company that's trying to sell kind of like a Singapore product or a Singapore brand to America, to China, to Korea or Japan, suddenly it's a lot easier because the Singapore brand now is very aligned. So now I think it's a very good time for a Singapore company to consider a global market. That being said, the challenge that Jake mentioned would be with regard to liquidity, right? There's a lot of easy money in the market, and unfortunately that doesn't help, I think, our local startups. Yeah, the money came too easy, right? And a very commonplace understanding is that now I start a company, I figure out how to fundraise, right? But that's a very unhealthy way of looking at your own business. Yeah, I still believe like that the first question should be asking yourself, how do I create value? How do I create a good product? How do I create happy clients? And then to support this entire business, then they'll pay you money, right? Yeah, to support this business, I fundraise, which means that with or without fundraise, your business is sustainable. With fundraising, it's accelerated, right? But the situation now is that without fundraising, right, the Singaporean companies cannot float, and that's why they cannot get Series A. Because once you go to Series A, my due diligence, right, I have to look at your books, right? You have to clock revenue. You need a business case, and you need to prove traction. And a lot of our companies cannot even do that because the money came too easily. Now it's 50,000. It used to be 500,000. Yeah, with iGEM. Yeah, it's so crazy. Yeah, like 500,000 at a $2 million valuation for an idea. Can you believe it? Like, very difficult. And if you start that way, how will you end, right? Like it's already the wrong foot to start on. So my personal feeling, Singapore, like a lot of things going for it, but we as Singaporeans, right, need to be very conscientious that there is a Singaporean mindset that is unhealthy for entrepreneurship. Yeah, you need to break out of that pigeonhole. You need to look at the global market, right? If your product, like Carousel, right? You see, like I used to be in Shopee, right? Everything. Okay, y'all record this, but let's be careful about the recording. So when we started Shopee, right, we actually wanted to buy out Carousel. Right, because in technology, you buy or you build, right? If I cannot buy them, I just take the money and I build, and I kill you. Right? So, like, I mean, that's the idea, right? But Carousel managed to secure very strong funding from Sequoia, but now I guess like the word on the street is, how is Carousel going to monetize? And everybody is asking that, and it's very strange that you're asking that now rather than you're asking in the beginning, right? So unfortunately, in Southeast Asia, our understanding of technology is shaped by Rocket Internet. Right, Zaloras of the world, Lazaras of the world came in with very big funding, grow at all costs, don't care about monetization, just grow first and we see how later, right? Yeah, so that kind of shaped all the young people's understanding of technology. But if you go to America, you realize that there's a very strong breed of another kind of technology companies that actually focus on value, growing responsibly. They actually care about who is their investor, don't just keep taking money for nothing, right? And they have proven to last. And Rocket Internet now, they're listed, right? It's also doing very badly because they cannot withstand the test of time. Yeah, so I guess like especially for young entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs like you, like yourself, like do consider that there are different ways of structuring your own business. There is an alternate way of looking at monetization. Yeah, so I'm actually a strong proponent of the second. Yeah, so create a business that will survive not in Singapore from the onset. Know that your business, for example, even I take the same thing, I bring to Thailand, I bring to Malaysia, I bring to Indonesia, immediately can get clients. Then you have something. Yeah.
I think 2 points. One is definitely there's too much easy money in Singapore, like they said. Like I have come across a few startups where I was wondering as to why did you get funded? Like you just have an idea, you haven't proven it, you don't have a business case, you don't have a business model.
Can you give an example?
I don't think those companies exist anymore actually. So I come more from the edtech and the healthcare perspective because I'm from the sciences and right now I'm in the edtech business. But one thing that I've noticed when I go to the Silicon Valley or anywhere in Europe as well, first question, they still don't identify Singapore as a healthcare market. They're like, it's too small, you know. And then the next question is, oh, you do have good healthcare in Singapore? That's the first question. And then they go like, don't you have just 2 universities? How much research can happen there? You know, that kind of question. And edtech, they are totally surprised if we have an edtech startup from Singapore. Because they're like, your population is so less, and what kind of a startup can you have in education? How much can you disrupt in education? And like they said, you know, Singapore is this small dot there that's not even seen on the map. And they don't want to accept that we can be as good as, you know, or we are getting where Silicon Valley is. But we have too many years ahead to get to where Silicon Valley is. Like the people I've seen in Silicon Valley, like they're just jumping, you know, they're just jumping on ideas. They forget their failures, move ahead, do how many ever startups you want and succeed in one. Here, I think the mindset, it's a very Asian mindset. It's an Indian, Singaporean, Chinese mindset that once you fail, oh my God, that's the end of my life. I don't think that's the end of your life. You just learn along the way and move on and do the next thing.
Yes, that's a very good point. Failure doesn't mean that, you know, it doesn't mean that you suck and you should give up. It's just a stepping stone for like a future success. So I think that's a very good point to raise.
So maybe to add in from the student's perspective, budding entrepreneurs, usually we see it as those easy funding that you mentioned, right? As something like as a compensation for my time cost. You know, if I have chose MNC routes right now, right, I will be having a stable income. Maybe I can even maybe project my cash flow, you know, depending on how fast I can climb the corporate ladder. But right now, right, if I'm going to do these startups, how am I going to feed myself? If I'm not ready from, you know, a well-funded family or something like that, how am I going to get the funding at an initial stage? Do you see this as you know, what the government's way of like, you know, there's always a criticism against the Singapore government that they are doing they are very hard-handed at, you know, nurturing things and stuff like that. You know, they are the parental kind of government. So do you think that they also adopt this? Maybe SGInnovate can answer this also. That, like, you know.
I'll just quickly. So this is my I started this straight, right?
Yeah.
I didn't go into corporate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think back to your question, if your consideration is more like the money is to compensate the loss that I've done in corporate and stuff, right? Then better don't do startup already, because you can't take risk. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So it's a quick answer there. But just thought of that. Maybe there's a misconception that everybody needs to be sufficient in income to basically start a startup. I just share my story. Is I took TFL, tuition loan, for my university. And then so during my uni time, I made enough money to pay off all the debt during the 4 years, right? So how did I make money? Once again, my style, right? Arbitrage. I always find ways to earn money. Yeah. So I made enough money to do that. So I left the school debt-free. The money that was given to me, and every time I raise money, people will tell me, congratulations. I'm really very sad when I raise money, because I'm selling part of my company it could have been mine and profitable soon, but I just needed the money to hire more people and do things faster, because I'll get eaten up soon. So every time when I get money funding, it was never to consider for myself, but it's really for the company. I take minimum pay, and that hopefully it ends up somewhere, not get eaten up by people. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, actually when I hear my other panelists here say that there's a lot of easy money in Singapore, I actually feel quite amused, because just sharing from our company's perspective.
Not for healthcare.
Yeah, perhaps not. Yeah. So when we first started, say about 2 years ago, we tried to get we tried to get funding from the various government grants that were there. And so we applied with Spring for the tax grant and so on. But it was actually, to be honest, it was a very painful process for our company. We spent quite a lot of effort and time to work through that. But in the end, we didn't get the grant for various reasons. And in the end, we raised our own separate rounds of money from private investment, and that kept us going as a company. So yeah, so and at very early stage as a startup, really time and resources are actually the most important things, and every time you waste your time on something like this, it actually makes it a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging. So, but that being said, I must say that there are a lot of options for early stage funding, as everybody has shared around here. There are many ways you can get that initial first 1 or 2 checks to get your company going. At the same time, I'll just add on a little bit of advice. Is I would say that while it might be easy to start out here in Singapore, I would say from the beginning, when you start your company as a startup, you need to look beyond Singapore. You need to go beyond Singapore, because basically the the market over here in Singapore is very small. It might be a good place to perhaps test bed some of your business models or some of your ideas, but you need to have a plan beyond that. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the company to sustain beyond that.
So echoing what Teng Yan said, right? It's the concept that we believe at SGInnovate also. It is built in Singapore, but for the world. So Singapore's market is just too small. The reason why you have a lot of issues raising like Series B funding, Series C funding, is not because there's no money here. It's because the startup is not good enough. Investors at those stages will not put money like how you will be putting it in seed for you to develop an idea. So it's not from the perspective that money it's easy to get, There are definitely different verticals where money is a lot harder, because these verticals are not as matured, not as common in Singapore, not as sexy. But it's tougher. Even if it boils down to things like governmental grants and stuff like that, it's not exactly an easy process also. Perhaps the ACE grant will be something that's the most least work required, because they are really trying to encourage entrepreneurs to start, like 50K. But what can 50K get you? If you're not the right material, right, it probably lasts you for like 3-6 months, and then you decide, oh, this is not for me. Because why? Because this last 3 to 6 months, my friend landed a job at DBS, and he's being paid like 6K a month, and I don't want this kind of like lifestyle anymore. So I think the issue with Singaporeans, myself included, sometimes because of the environment that we're being brought up with, there is a lot of opportunity cost kind of like considerations that we have. But I realized that after meeting so many entrepreneurs, like Jun Xian, like the ones that are within our portfolio companies, and those entrepreneurs that work on a daily basis, it's only a small fraction of the mind. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know I have to give out this, but I'm just going to do it anyway because I believe in what I'm building. Because I'm willing to take the risk, and I think that whatever risk I take, I'm going to have a higher upside in the future. And they just charge ahead with this belief, and it's not common, but increasingly you see a lot of this, and it's I think it's exciting. Because when you talk to these individuals, you don't like, hey, how's your work day today? They go like, oh yeah, I just did my usual stuff in the office. They tell you like entirely what happened from the morning of the day, which probably start at 4 a.m. and they end the day probably at like 1 a.m. And they are just super energetic. Because they're doing something they really believe in and they think it's going to be impactful. So I think there's no right or wrong. I don't think you have to be an entrepreneur. I think it's perfectly fine if you want to be in a corporate as well. But it's ultimately a life choice. Because if you choose to be an entrepreneur, then you're going to have... If I leave SGInnovate now, my pay is going to be like 0. Because starting up is 0. And I have to make a decision myself and I have to deal with it. If I'm going to consider, okay, so I'm going to spend the next 2 years, what's the opportunity cost? Do I have to buy a HDB? Am I going to get married soon? Then maybe I'm not cut out for it. But if I'm just going to do it and then see where it brings me to, then maybe that itchy back hike serves a purpose. Yeah, that's just personal perspective.
So maybe to play the devil's advocate here. So right now there's actually a new trend where the corporates are stealing talents that's supposedly to come out of entrepreneurship, right? By inviting them to those kind of startup incubator that's within the corporate world. So I promise you a fixed salary pay, and then you do your innovation here, you come up with your ideas. We provide you the resources. You nurture it within our name, right? And that's a new way of they are trying to do it, actually to grab talents, because right now apparently there's a problem of losing all these talents to entrepreneurship themselves, right? So what do you think of like this? Could this be a middle ground for the pragmatic Singaporeans who are calculating everything like this? Would that be possible, or would you think that it's still a very tied down kind of way of doing entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I'm going to comment on this because it sits into like what we do at SGInnovate. We do a lot of co-innovation. So just now you mentioned like the UOB FinLab program. It's a joint collaboration between SGInnovate and UOB Bank. We also help out with the Open Vault, which is led by OCBC. We have also helped with DBS with the innovation programs before. If you have really been in part of this programs, right, you'd understand the difference between working in an innovation arm of a corporate versus working in a startup. It's different. You may have individuals who like working in an innovation arm of, like, say, DBS, and they do amazing stuff. DBS Payla was an idea. Look at how much they've implemented in the last few years. But it's still different when you are an entrepreneur yourself. So it's not a middle ground for Singaporeans. It's just a different opportunity for a different type of person looking for a different degree of innovation or risk-taking or, being more hands-on in the things that you do. So on one extreme end, you can be in a very stringent corporate environment. You just do exactly what you do, like execute trades. Then on the other end, you can be part of the innovation department of a corporate, who then looks at how to bring out new innovation ideas within a team, build new businesses and stuff. And then towards the other end, then you can be a full-blown entrepreneur yourself. Then it depends on what you want at different stages of life also. So I have friends who have been like in the startups, and then after then they do decent exit, and then they think, okay, I'm enough of this life. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids, but I cannot see myself working in a corporate. So they join an innovation arm of a established corporate, and then to help to steer certain directions of how things are be done. For example, like consulting firms in Singapore, like PwC, KPMG. KPMG runs the digital village, where if you are a startup, you can leverage on KPMG resources. And then the middleman, the interface between the startup and KPMG is typically someone who have experience in the startup space or someone who have good experience in the corporate space but is interested in startup. So there is this middle place for people who want that type of jobs.
I think it's a perfect setup for people who don't want to have a boss per se, but want to get a steady paycheck. So there are a lot of people who'd like to do that. So I think it makes perfect sense for them. But they're still tied down by the IP issues, and there is a wall around them. But I think in terms of healthcare, where I come from, I think it makes perfect sense because, like he said, it's not easy to get money for healthcare in Singapore. Definitely not, because the quantum that we want is much higher than what a tech company needs. So the start, what we need might be 10 times more than what a tech company needs. And that kind of money is not there for a pre-seed or seed. But if you are incubated, for example, in the innovation arm of P&G or, for example, Johnson & Johnson and so on, you have the brand name, you have the freedom to operate on your own, to innovate, and you do get funding because you have the brand name. So that might work for people in the healthcare space for sure. Yeah.
So I have a slightly, I would say, more cynical view of this, and I think if you look at, there are reasons why corporates are actually setting up all these like incubators, innovation arms around that. And my personal take is that I think they see it as a cheap way to outsource R&D and research development rather than build their own in-house teams, which involves a lot of hiring, and they probably don't have the expertise in order to do some of that. So that's my personal take. But that being said, I would say I'm fully supportive of any initiative that actually brings more money and innovation into this whole ecosystem.
Okay, so you know how the Singapore government is really hopping on the idea of building a smart nation, and so they're encouraging more students to take on engineering-related fields. So what do you think about this? Do you think like Singaporeans really want to be engineers, or maybe are there already enough engineers? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so even they are actually moving, current professionals in their mid-career change towards maybe technology related, right? Or maybe in your own expert domain to actually adapt technologies to it, moving on to this field. So do you think that is it a solvable situation to our current economy, which someone mentioned just now?
Yeah.
I can speak from our company's perspective. So we receive a lot of, applicants from master's students and masters in computing. So, and it's very obvious that there's a very big crew of master's students in computing, influxing the market. But commercially for us, it doesn't make sense to hire because there's going to be very severe expectations misalignment. You're a fresh grad level of competency in terms of computing. But I have to pay you master's pay. And even if you take a fresh grad pay, right, it may not be a long-term solution because you're going to feel very upset inside. So that, for me anyways, from the Cashshield's perspective, yes, very obvious that, mid-career, not really mid-career, but master's students taking computing, but not entirely hireable for us.
So I think Singaporeans are very pragmatic people, myself included. So we tend to flock towards industries or jobs where, one, there's the best pay potential and where they see the future is going to be. And I think most of us can see that in terms of, say, computer science, engineering, and so on, there is a lot of potential in the future because a lot of everything that we do today right now is going to be affected and perhaps even disrupted by technology. In that sense. So I think it's good, it's a good thing. That being said, also education takes time. I think the Singapore government is trying to encourage a lot of people from a very young age to be more towards these STEM subjects and so on. But to really build up, I would say that that base of expertise and all that, it will take time. So it's not a 5-year endeavor, maybe 10 or 20 years before we have a very solid pool of, I would say, local people who have very strong expertise in some of these areas.
See a lot of awkward shrugging here.
So, do I say anything? Oh. All right. So looking for maybe a candid question over here to break the the awkwardness. So how many? Okay, now we all mentioned some of them. Of course, Cashshield we all know, and RateX and stuff like that. But how many startups do you see will Singapore come out by SG100? So how many of those will end up in the unicorn list? So maybe we are not going to quote you on a prediction, but just for fun's sake, maybe some of you want to share your views. Yeah.
Okay, so unicorn, $1 billion, right? Yeah. So it's very subjective to the market size.
Yes.
Yeah. So you take out the entire Southeast Asia, 360 million population. SG100, when is it?
It'll be
50 years. Wow, that's a tough question. So basically, you calculate with that adoption of tech. I cannot do that. I cannot do that forecast. I'm sorry.
What about 2020? What about by 2020?
So it's easy way, right? So always look 3 years before to US. Yeah, so that's the fastest forecast that you can do, the best. Yeah. So if 3 years ago US was hot there, that in that vertical, you can bring it to Singapore.
Oh.
Still hot now. Yeah.
Wow.
Then whatever is mature there, you can bring over and stuff. And whatever is dead there, still can start. But the reverse doesn't work. Yeah. So 50 years SG100, I have no answer for that. I'll be dead by then as well.
Your crystal ball isn't working.
By then, I don't know, I'm sure it's still internet and still hardware. Who can tell?
Yeah.
So do you
Anyone
wanna take
else has a crystal ball they want to try look into?
Yeah, I'm quite sure Cashshield will be unicorn. Because but that's based on current market rate, right? Like assuming you have a P multiple of 10, I need to hit 100 million revenue a year, right? Yeah, it's for us it's entirely doable. So we're not there yet, but I'm quite bullish about the company. But anyway, but that's for us. I think in terms of Singapore, really don't have that many. You think about Garena, right? So Garena, in valuation we are, sorry, I'm no longer part of Garena, but in valuation Garena is a unicorn. But the whole idea of valuation is coming down already, right? It's normalizing. So even valuation is no longer as, aggressive as it used to be. In the past, like, wow, they take like, 15 times your top line, and not even, like, whatever money you come in, right, I just multiply by 15, that's your valuation, right? That's the idea of valuation. Or even like, okay, assuming like, what's your name again?
No, Xingyu, yes.
Xingyu.
Yeah, Xingyu.
Okay, so let's say, right, okay, let's say you're gonna earn $10 this year, right? I give you, I saw this news recently, by the way. I give you another $10, right? And I give you like $999,999 in payment in kind. Your valuation is how much, you know? Like 1 million already, from nothing. So valuation as an idea, I think like quite up there in the air. And it's changing. Every year the valuation multiples change. So I wouldn't really use valuation. But I think in terms of Singapore, Garena is there, Grab is there, Ribbons maybe soon. Because they are seeking new funding, right? Razer, technically not a Singaporean company, but still there. Yeah, well, it seems like the companies that don't hang out in Singapore afterwards are becoming unicorns. So these companies have been around for, call it like 7 years already. So I think like 5 years from now, maybe like divide by 2, maybe like 2 or 3 more. Yeah.
But as they like to say, right, you don't need to be a unicorn to survive as a startup, right? I mean, once you can be a business that not necessarily needs to be valued at the, at an extraordinary.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So I think we were just chatting with this with like David.
Yes.
He was asking me like, what do I see for the future of Cashshield, right? Like, so there's something I tell my investors and there's something I tell my staff, like different. So like I tell my investors like, wow, like PayPal's gonna acquire us, it's gonna be so cool, everybody's gonna be so happy, there's gonna be so much money, and then we can like do this, whatever. But internally, right, we actually tell our staff that we actually strive to be a sustainable company. We pay dividends, so we have retained earnings because as a company we are profitable, and and then we be a company that's known for innovation. So why can't we just continue to reward our existing shareholders, and then we come out with new products that like solves market problems, and we do it in an organic, stable, responsible way. I mean, why can't we build a company like that, right? And this is very important because it's going to cascade all the way downwards. If your leadership believes in this, your company culture is going to believe in it, right? And Garena, unfortunately, in Shopee, we had a very hire and fire kind of, I guess, like a company culture, right? Like I hire you, very, very highly paid, a bit overqualified, slightly egoistic people, right? Come in and then like, just work all the way, right? Every day 11:30 p.m. 11:30 p.m. 12. It's like a Ferrari, keep on pumping fuel in. That's one modus operandi. But yeah, but I think like for us anyways, like there is room to build a sustainable company. Yeah, and that's something we hope for. And therefore, we believe in work-life balance. Therefore, we believe in growing our people rather than parachuting very highly paid people in. It cascades all the way downwards. So, yeah. So valuation may not be the thing. So the whole idea of a unicorn maybe may not be so relevant in the near future. But yeah, I think like building a sustainable company for us is the thing.
So, any questions from the floor? Yes. Oh, there's a mic up there.
Hi, testing. Hi. So first of all, thank you for being here and sharing with us your insights. I'm Xijie, a business student at NUS. So I have a question for all of you. So as someone with quite an itchy backside also, but I have never really, take this step, and start my own company. And I attribute to, for example, perhaps I don't want it as much as you guys, or perhaps I'm not as optimistic as you guys. So for all of you, do you think that one of the reasons that you start this company is because you are optimistic by nature and maybe you have a strong desire for something? Thank you.
I strongly think I'm pessimistic because, entrepreneurs, they say entrepreneurs sleep very little, etc., right? So when I click on my alarm clock every day, it tells me I have 7 hours, 8 hours. That's damn decent, right? But every day when I wake up, I just get more and more tired. And then they tell me that the reason is because my quality of sleep is dropping. So I can't tell if the day-to-day action is optimistic or pessimistic because I have what a front, right, for my guys. Like, no worries, this can be done. What are you worrying about, man? That kind of thing. But maybe in my sleep, I'm crying every night. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but that's what's happening to me right now. So, and also there's a study, right? They say this no reference to anybody intelligence or I'm not smart at all, but they say smart people are more pessimistic. Yeah, if you don't think so much, you will be quite happy. Yeah, but I think if you do a startup and you don't think so much, it's not possible, right? Everything needs to be thought of. And when you think so much, it's very hard to be happy. Yeah, sorry about that.
I guess I have to echo Jake as well. For myself, I don't think, if you ask me to classify myself, I don't think of myself as an optimistic person per se. I think I'm actually more towards the pessimistic side. But I would say that what probably drives most of us over here in terms of doing what we do is that we strongly believe in something. For me, personally, it was being able to make a larger impact to people, and that's what I always want to do, and what I was doing before traditionally in the typical healthcare setting as a clinician. It's very limited. For example, the number of people you can have a positive impact on is limited by the amount of time you have in order to see your patients. But I wanted to do something a bit bigger and sort of do that. I guess that's what is my motivation and kind of keeps me waking up on a daily basis. And yeah.
I can share mine. I think very good perspectives. But mine is very simple. It's ultimately, I think all of us die, right? So then, while we are here, what are you gonna do? You wake up, do what, right? So for me, I like building. And then it's just a conscious decision. Every day when I wake up, I would like my career or my occupation to be something that every day I go and build something. I go and build stuff, build processes, go and fundraise, whatever. So that's what I wanted for myself every day. The optimism or pessimism, I think is cautiously optimistic, right? But as in, I know there are risks out there. I share with you my first business, right? Cafe, right? And the cafe is currently in PGP called Super Snacks. Don't you all know that? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the first cafe we built, and that was really year 2, Sem 2. Oh, I tell you, there's a moment. So we try to save money, right? So we tried to bulk purchase from Mustafa. Wow, damn check. So then bargain. Okay. Until a certain price that that it's quite a good price already. Then it comes a point in time, right, where he give you the bill. No, he gave me the bill, and because it's such a big number. Okay, at that time it's 20,000 basically. My life savings from army, yeah. And then my partner also came out 20,000, and you can have I remember I had a very distinct choice at that point in time, right? I sign, right, all gone. Right, and then don't need thing really, just go and try and do. Or I don't sign and I keep all my money. Right, it was very distinct though. The dude was just standing there. The thing asked me to sign. Yeah, then ultimately I was thinking about exactly this kind of thing, right? I'm young. I like to think of myself as a little bit adventurous. Yeah, and what am I telling myself, right? Am I telling myself that Jun Xian is someone who's adventurous? Or am I telling myself that Jun Xian is not someone that is adventurous? And I know that I was setting a tone for myself. Yeah, and I signed. Yeah, and I didn't know where it would bring me, honestly, at that point in time. I don't even know. We started selling waffles, by the way. Yeah, and then the waffles, right? You know why I sell waffles?
I bought your waffles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, many years ago.
Thank you. You contributed to my school fee. but yeah, because I take flour, I take eggs, and I mix the water, and I sell you $1, not bad. then I upsell you, I put a bit of chocolate, and I sell you $1.50. So the margins are very good. And that was the level of thinking I have, right? Yeah, when I signed away my life savings. But the decision was really like what I wanted to tell myself lah. Yeah, and I mean I beseech you all to when you make your decisions, right, try to make it very consciously. Yeah, what exactly are you saying to yourself, right? Are you someone that is like this, or you're not someone that's like that? You don't realize it, but when you make that decision and you make that conscious decision, you're telling yourself something. Every day, right, when you wake up, right, you will know that I've made this decision and I'm like that, I'm like that, I'm like that. 5 years down the road, right, you realize that you're actually quite an entrepreneur already. Yeah, but it doesn't start that way. Yeah, it starts with a very, very small but significant decision. Yeah, so for me anyways, like now, I would not go back to a corporate life because like every day I find joy in building a team, building a product, building a market. It's what I want to do. Yeah, even if you tell me that, you know, like I eat Pao Mian every day eat Maggi mee, it's what I choose to do with my life. I want to build. Yeah, so not so much the optimistic or pessimistic thing.
So for me, like when I first graduated, right, most of the peers and myself would like look at management training programs. Yeah, so that's like the ultimate goal. Yeah, you go for management training programs because you have good pay, you have an exposure around the company, you have good progression. So I got some offers when I graduated, and I looked at it. And of course, being a Singaporean son, I went to consult my father. Yeah, as all Singaporean boys usually, you have a heavy fatherly influence. So my dad is an entrepreneur. He ran a furniture business, and then he eventually IPO'd it. And then he looked at me and said, "Do you want to spend 3 years in a program building a product building a business for somebody, or you want to do something like a little bit more crazy?" So I look at him. I want to spend 3 years of my life. I replied, "I want to spend 3 years of my life for this company because the starting pay is 5,500." And he looked at me. No, I don't think you should do that. Let me give you a trade-off. This is personal sharing area. He said, if you choose the route I'm suggesting for you, I'll pay off your car. Yeah, so it's a little bit unique for me. So I say, okay, I'll take your offer and I'll go and work for this SME you want me to work. So basically what he did, right, he found me a Chinese investor who is coming into Singapore with a certain amount of fund to acquire early childhood education institutes. So we went on to buy kindergarten, we went on to buy childcare centers, we went on to buy PEIs, we went on to acquire technology companies that do like curriculum and onboarding. So what this guy did was to rebrand everything from Singapore and then sold it back to China because we had a good branding in terms of Singapore. So my entire 2.5 years there, I felt like I was doing shit. Because I had to work till 2 a.m. in the morning. I wake up, I reach the office at 6 a.m. I sometimes even have to go and pick up my customers' family members from the airport. Because it's expected of you to do that. But, you know, at the end of that 2.5 years when I decided to leave because they were selling back to China, the question was whether I want to be in China, and the answer was, at the point of time, no. Now maybe I'll reconsider, but at the point of time, no. So I stopped. Then I realized that I became a person who cannot take orders. I like to be in a position to be able to decide for myself the next action and whatever action I'm going to do and have ownership over it. So if you ask me to go and join a corporate now, right, and they tell me, okay, every day you do this, and I say, why? Because this is how it's being done, I will die. Because it's really not who I am. I can't do it. So SGInnovate, right, it's well, technically corporate, but we don't behave like one. My boss is somewhere out there. She's probably laughing at me now. But basically, right, if you have an idea and you want to implement it, and you are the kind of person, right, you need to find an environment for it. Because if you go to a place that doesn't encourage it, the first year you feel upset. The second year you feel defeated. The third year you won't even bother trying. Your mindset, your personality, your mentality will change. And somehow or other, you know, when I make a decision to follow my dad, for better or for worse, I put myself in a position where I became fully aware that each choice I take on a daily basis, the amount of time I spend on certain things has an impact on me as an individual. And once you have that awareness, and once you have that ownership, it's very hard for you to do a very stifling job. That you're just doing things for the sake of doing things. And I guess that was how it shaped me to be an individual. Yeah.
I used to be the most pessimistic person ever. That's because a lot of personal hurdles. I lost my father when I was 15, lost my brother after that, and a lot of personal issues with that. And all the time I kept feeling that whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to lose it in the next few years. But I think my first startup was in 2014. And when I started it off, I think then it was like, so what's going to happen? It's going to close down, fine, let it close down. Tomorrow I'm going to lose my money, fine, let me lose my money. I mean, what else can go worse than me losing my father and my brother, you know? It was that kind of a mentality with me. But now it's kind of like, I can't wait to get up in the morning because I'm like, oh my God, when is it going to be 6 o'clock? When can I get up and do my work? You know, for me, sleep is a necessity because my body won't function, I have to sleep. But otherwise, I would not sleep if I didn't have to. That's not a good advice, being in sciences and being a scientist. But yeah, that's the kind of push that I have and the passion that I have in what I do. And another thing why I'm still in my corporate job is I don't really have a boss. So I can still do whatever I want. I am building a team. I am managing the entire institute. So it gives me that freedom to do what I want when I want. And I think it's a very individualistic thing that it depends on what you would like to do. Your choices can change every few years. But when it changes, just make sure that you're in the right field or the right sector.
So just a quick word, I think something that David said really struck me, and it was actually the word crazy. And I would say that a lot of times it's very difficult to fully rationalize that decision that you have to make in terms of like either deciding to leave your full-time job or corporate job to start a startup, or decide to devote most of your time to it. But rather you just have to do it. A lot of it is driven by some kind of emotional, intangible kind of things within us. And I think the most important thing I would say is that once you make a decision, just keep looking forward and not look back and see what you have got. Because otherwise I think you are actually literally going to go crazy if you keep looking back.
So I hope that answered your question. Yeah, do we have any more questions from the floor? Okay, if we don't, maybe I'll build on this question. So what kind of traits do you think are the most important for someone who's interested in getting into startups? Like starting their own company. What kind of trait do you think is most important for them to have in order for them to succeed, or maybe learn a lot from creating their own company?
So one is definitely resilience. To go through whatever you have to go through, to get up every morning and face all the hurdles and the failures and all of that. Or the other way is to not care about what is happened. I mean, just brush it off and then move ahead. So you can either be the person who can go ahead with all of that, or the person who doesn't care about it. So I think that counts. So it depends what kind of person you are. You can't be in the middle ground. Then you'll just go crazy.
If you are someone who can survive with 2 to 3 hours of sleep a day, I think you should be a founder because you have a lot more hours than other individuals in the room. I mean, jokes aside, I think, after working with so many startups and so many founders, right, something that struck me the most is the ability to move on. Yeah, it's, if you have a company, right, it's not going to be smooth sailing. Like you may fail at getting your first few customers. But if you are someone who okay, I can't do this anymore, then there's no point because you're going to have a lot more rejections and a lot more people who is willing to work with you. So one of the personality trait maybe is the willingness to continuously move on from your failures and then to work towards success.
I would like to build on that because I think some people might mistake that for being very pessimistic, but I think that's more of being defeatist. Like you just give up immediately. So rather than thinking it just won't work out, but maybe even while being pessimistic, you can still move on and just accept that things happen and then still continue on with the business.
I'm not very sure how to explain that, but basically, right, you just look at the situation and ask what is the worst thing that can happen. And if you come to terms with that worst thing that can happen, right, I think there's nothing much to prevent you from moving ahead. Like if you do a startup and then you say, okay, the worst thing that can happen is I spent the last 6 months building a product and nobody is willing to pay. So what? Then I move on. If you can't rationalize that within yourself, you can't have that perspective, then you'll be stuck at, oh no, I spent 6 months when my friends are doing this. That it's just kind of the wrong mindset, I feel.
I think I'm too inexperienced and been in this field for too short a time to comment. So I leave to the pros.
Tai Chi the problem away.
Well, I guess I would say that one trait that would be very useful for someone who's starting a startup is really being very adaptable. And what I can see, I mean, sharing from our personal experience, like when we first started our company, what we imagined our company to be is probably very different from what it was at the very early stage. And being able to, I would say, continue to adapt to changes in the environment, whatever it may be. There will be a lot of, I would say, uncertainties and unpredictable events that will just happen, or there will be certain opportunities that come up, and you have to make that decision whether you want to go for this opportunity or not. I think being able to, like what some of our other panelists have also shared, being able to adapt, make a decision, and I guess move forward from there.
Yeah, I think quite similar to Teng Yan. So, yeah, I actually don't think there's like one or two or three or four traits that kind of like define a good entrepreneur, because they are kind of successful examples of all of those, right? But I agree with Teng Yan that adaptability is important, but on a fundamental level, you must be very comfortable with dealing with uncertainty. Yeah, because the whole thing doesn't exist, right? But you're trying to make it exist. So every day is uncertainty. So you have to be comfortable with it. If uncertainty, for example, is something that makes you stop in your tracks, and it's very common. You guys want to do a test? Like, what's your name again? Xingyu. Yeah. Xingyu. Like, which is the next big market, you think, in the world after China?
After China?
Yeah.
Likely to be India.
India. Okay. Then, therefore, okay, if your call is India, right? Then now what should you be doing?
I should be learning the language.
Yeah, correct. You should be learning Hindi. Right, very important. Right. But then, like, yeah, because that's your call, right? But
then you have to learn about 300 languages.
Yeah, which is not gonna happen. Yeah, but you see, but we don't act upon it. Yeah, and because like, I guess we tend towards what we're comfortable with. Even though you have a very clear call and you're very committed that you believe it's going to be India, we're not doing anything about it. So I think like being able to deal with uncertainty, the things we don't know, you make a call and you need to be able to act upon it. And every day as an entrepreneur, I guess I do that. You guys all do that as well, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, with that mindset, I think you take one step at a time, you can go very far. But character traits wise, like I really don't think there's one, two, or three things that define a good entrepreneur. Yeah.
So how many languages do you know?
Me, you'll be surprised. Only English now. Quite a few, but yeah, but master of none, I would say.
So do we have any more questions?
So maybe to add on, maybe even though Jake said that he's inexperienced, I think I will be even more inexperienced than him. But I would think that open-mindedness is very important, because you will be facing a lot of challenges and criticism from your peers, even from your parents if they are not, like David born as entrepreneurs and stuff like that. So you will face a lot of, even within your team, where they will be like, just on Jake, you must have that face, they tell them, oh, we can do it, we can continuously do it. Even for ourselves, we run BiZiT, it's going to be harsh, because everyone is, my team there is, out there somewhere, okay, they're actually outside there, so not here to hear my motivational speech, but yeah, so they will also be asking, questioning your decision. Maybe you have to be pessimistic in terms of thinking, but optimistic in terms of how you, motivate people and stuff like that. Yeah. So I think that's all for today. If there's no more question on the ground, I think we'll move on. Okay, to present a token of appreciation to our speakers for today.
Yeah,
yes.
we'd really like to thank all of you for coming here today and sharing all your thoughts and drinking all the water.
Yeah, it's 30% tax right now for the water.
Yes, water is expensive right now, so just kidding.
Okay.
So
maybe we would like to.
We're gonna invite.
Could we get a group photo first? The photographers is still in the middle. Yeah. Standing yeah, here would be good. Okay. So maybe I'll just move the chair back. Yeah. Okay.
Wait, where are we looking?
Oh yeah, in the middle. Okay, thank you. So we will just present the.
Okay, so.
One by one, yeah.
We'll get Sinurit, who is the president of BiZiT, to
Okay.
present a token of
So, yeah.
appreciation to our guests.
I know some of you are alumni from NUS, so we present you the NUS pen for your signature and signing of more contracts, and hopefully you'll do better in your businesses. Yeah, right. Thank you. Right. Okay, just a photo. Yeah, okay.
More
Thank you.
photos.
All right, thank you. All right, thanks a lot for coming for the event. Yeah.
Another photo.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Even more photos.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Hey, thanks, David, for coming. Yeah. So yeah, just.
You're slowly moving towards the center.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Slowly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
the
you.
only person from NTU.
Oh, all right. No problem. Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's give a big round of applause to our wonderful guests for showing up today.
So we invite you all down for. Yeah. So that's all. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot for coming. I know you're all busy people.